Daf Yomi, Tractate Menachot, page 61a, top of the page, with the words Marbe Ani Shar Menachos. Shibaos Biglal Atzman, Motziani Minchas Nisochim, Shenu Ba Biglal Atzma, Ve'alo Minchas Koyhanim, Minchas Koyin Mashiach, Baos Biglal Atzman, Yachol Yehud, Teunos Hagasha. The Brisa answers, I include from this verse the other meal offerings as they come due to themselves, meaning they do not accompany other offerings. And I exclude the meal offering brought with libations as it does not come due to itself, but rather together with an animal offering. The Brisa challenges, but the meal offering of priests and the meal offering of the anointed priest also come due to themselves. And according to this logic, one might have thought that they too would require becoming near, bringing near Hagasha. Tamalomar Vigisha, Hai Miboile, Legufa, Shituna Hagasha, Min Vihigish Vihigisha. Okay. Therefore, the verse states, and he shall bring it near to the altar, Leviticus 2, verse 8, to exclude the meal offering of priests and the meal offering of the anointed priests from the requirement of bringing near. The Brisa raises a difficulty, but that verse is required for its own sake, meaning to teach the basic halacha that a meal offering requires bringing near to the altar. The Brisa answers this halacha is derived from the fact that the verse could have stated just, and he shall bring. And instead it states, and he shall bring it. Uma rois oder rabois shor minochois uleois minchas koyhanim minchas koyin Mashiach Marveani shor menochois, שיש מהם לאישים ובויס בגלל עצמון ויש מהן לכהנים. ומוציאני שתי הלחם הלחם הפונים שאין מהם לאישים. ומנחס נסכים שאינו בא בגלל עצמם מנחס כהן מנחס כהן משיח שאין מהם לכהנים. The Bride asks, and what did you see that led you to include the other meal offerings in the requirement of bringing near and to exclude the meal offering of priests and the meal offering of the anointed priest? The Brisa answers, I include the other meal offerings as there is a part of them burned in the fire of the altar, and they come due to themselves, and there is a part of them given to the priests to eat, and I exclude the 2 loaves and the showbread, as there is no part of them burned in the fire. And I exclude the meal offering brought with libations, as it does not come due to itself. And I also exclude the meal offering of priests and the meal offering of the anointed priest, as there is no part of them given to the priests. Veherim Yochol Bichli Tamuloma Veherim Mimeno Bikumtso Maharama Emur Lehalan Bikumtso Afarama Emur Kan Bikumtso. The Brisa continues. The verse states, and the priest shall take off from the meal offering its memorial part, and shall make it smoke upon the altar, an offering made by fire of a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Leviticus 2, verse 9. With regard to the phrase, and the priest shall take off, one might have thought the priest may perform this action even with a vessel. Therefore, the verse states, and this is the law of a meal offering. The sons of Aaron shall offer it before the Lord in front of the altar, and he shall take off from it his handful. Leviticus 6, 7 through 8. Just as the taking off that is stated below is performed specifically with the priest's handful and not with a vessel, so too the taking off that is stated here must be performed with the priest's handful, not with a vessel. That's the Talmud. Let's start the new Mishnah. Elu Teuno, this is the new Mishnah. Elu Teunos Tanufa Ve'ein Teunos Hagasha Lo Kshemen Shomet Soira Yashamai Ve'bikum K'divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Ve'emurei Sham Le'yochid Ve'chose Ve'shoik Shelahen. The Mishnah says, these are the items that require waving and do not require bringing near to the altar. The log of oil that accompanies the guilt offering of a recovered leper and his guilt offering itself, as it is written, and the priest shall take one of the lambs and sacrifice it for a guilt offering, and the log of oil and wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. Leviticus 14:12, and the first fruits in accordance with the statement of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and the sacrificial portions of the peace offerings of an individual and their breast and thigh, as it is written, the thigh of heaving and the breast of waving shall they bring with the offerings of the portions consumed by fire to wave it for a wave offering before the Lord. Leviticus 10:15. Echad anoshim v'echad noshim Yisrael v'loi v'acherim shtei alechem u'shnei kivsei atzeres. This requirement applies to peace offerings belonging both to men and to women, both male Jews, by male Jews and not by others. The Gemara will explain this seemingly contradictory statement on 61b. In addition, the 2 loaves and the accompanying peace offering of 2 lambs brought on Shavuot also do not require bringing near, but do require waving, as is written, and the priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits for a wave offering before the Lord with the 2 lambs. Leviticus 23, verse 20. Ketzadois and noisin shelechem, noisin shtei halechem al gabe shnei kevosim, umeniach shnei yodov limatem olechem mivima ma'ale morid shnei marashechu nafashahuram. Tanufa haisa b'mizrach, yarasha b'ma'arav. Tunufos godmos le'agashos. How does one perform this waving? He places the 2 loaves on top of the 2 lambs and places his 2 hands below the loaves and the lambs, extends the offerings to each of the 4 directions and brings them back, then raises and lowers them, as it is stated with regard to the waving of the ram of the inauguration of the priests, which is waved and which is heaved up. Exodus 29:27, meaning waved back and forth and heaved up and down. Waving was able to be performed to the east of the altar, but the bringing near of meal offerings had to be done to the west, meaning the southwest corner of the altar. Also, with regard to all meal offerings, the wavings precede the actions of bringing near. Minchas oim and minchas kinois, tunas agosh tenufa lechem aponim minchas tzachim, ein tunas v'legosh tenufa. The Omer meal offering and the meal offering of jealousy brought by a sota require both bringing near and waving. The meal offering of the Omer requires waving, as it is written, and he shall wave the Omer before the Lord, Leviticus 23:11. And likewise, with regard to the meal offering brought by a sota, it is written, and the priest shall take the meal offering of jealousy out of the woman's hand and shall wave the meal offering before the Lord, Numbers 5:25. The requirement of bringing near is derived, as explained earlier. The showbread and the meal offering brought with libations require neither bringing nor waving, neither bringing near nor waving. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shlosh Minin, Tiunin, Sholosh Mitzvois, Shtayim Bechol Achas Ve'achas, U'Shlish Zein Bohem Ve'eluhein, Zivchei Sham Yochid Ve'Zivchei Sham Tzibor. Rabbi Shimon says there are 3 types of offerings that require performance of 3 mitzvot. 2 mitzvot are performed on each and every one of them, but the 3rd mitzvah is not performed in their sacrifice, meaning that each of these offerings requires 2 out of the same 3 mitzvot, but not necessarily the same 2 as others. And these are the 3 offerings: peace offerings brought as gift offerings by individual, communal peace offerings, meaning the 2 lambs brought with the 2 loaves on Shavuot, and the guilt offering of a leper. See Leviticus 14:12-14. Zivchei Shalom Yochid Tiunin Smicha Chaim Tenuva Shechudin Evahem Tenuva Chaim Zivchei Shalom Tzibo Tiunin Tenuva Chaim Shechudin Evahem Smicha V'Yashem Tzorah Ta'un Smicha Utenufa Chai V'Ein Bo Tenufa Shachut. Peace offerings brought by individuals require placing hands on the head of the animals while the animals are still alive, and waving when they are slaughtered, but there is no obligation of waving them while they are alive. Communal peace offerings require waving both while the animals are still alive and after they are slaughtered, but there is no obligation of placing hands on them. And the guilt offering of a leper requires placing hands and waving while the animal is still alive, but there is no obligation of waving it after it is slaughtered. Okay, that's the Mishnah. And now for the Talmud. Zog the Talmud, Torah Rabbanan. You can avoid the Hashem es lo kashamin. The Mishnah teaches that both a log of oil that accompanies the guilt offering of a recovered leper and the guilt offering itself require waving. The sages taught in Bright, the verse states, and the priest shall take one of the lambs and sacrifice it for a guilt offering and the log of oil, and wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. Leviticus 14:12. The plural form of them teaches that the log of oil and the offering require waving, and that this should be performed with both of them together. And from where is it derived that if a priest waved this one by itself and that one by itself, that he has fulfilled his obligation? The same verse states in the singular form, and sacrifice it for a guilt offering and wave. The Gemara inquires, since parts of this verse are in the singular and parts are in the plural, one might have thought that he should wave both together and then wave each one separately. Therefore, the verse states a wave offering, which indicates that he should perform one waving but not multiple wavings. With regard to the phrase, a wave offering before the Lord, the Brighta states that this teaches that waving can be performed to the east of the altar as taught in the Mishnah. The Gemara raises a difficulty, but doesn't the Tana of Brighta cited earlier in the tractate on 19b say concerning a verse discussing the bringing near of a meal offering, which states before the Lord, Leviticus 6:7, that one might have thought one brings it to the west of the altar, as this is the side facing the sanctuary? The Tana proceeds to explain that the phrase in front of the altar, Leviticus 6:7, is a reference to the south, where one ascends the altar, and therefore the meal offering must be brought to the southwest corner. This indicates, though, that the expression before the Lord is a reference to the west. Amri, lo haya lo yesod avol hacha lefnei Hashem karina be. The Gemara answers, the sages say in response to this statement, that the expression before the Lord is a reference to the west and not to the east, applies only with regard to the meal offering, which is called a sin offering, as the verse states. It is most sacred, like a sin offering, Leviticus 6:10, and the sin offering requires its remaining blood to be poured out on the base of the altar. Therefore, the meal offering must also be brought to a part of the altar where there is a base, and as the southeast corner of the altar did not have a base, the meal offering must be brought to the southwest corner. In this manner, one fulfills both the requirement of in front of the altar, meaning to the south, and the requirement of before the Lord. But here, with regard to the log of oil and guilt offering of a leper, we call any side of the altar before the Lord. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Mai, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Titania, Bilakach HaKohen, limed al habikurim, Shidunin Tunufa, Divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The Mishnah teaches the first fruits also require waving in accordance with the statement of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The Gemara asks, what is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov alluded to here? The Gemara answers that it is as it is taught in a Braita. The verse states with regard to the first fruits, and the priest shall take the basket from your hand and place it before the altar of the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 26, verse 4. This taught a halacha concerning the first fruits, that they require waving. This is the statement from Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. My time is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Come on, yad mishlamim. Ksiv hachak v'lachak koyin atene miyadecha. Ksiv hasam yadav tivieno. The Gemara asks, what is the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, as the verse is not explicitly referring to waving? The Gemara explains the matter is derived by means of a verbal analogy from hand, written with regard to first fruits, and from hand, written with regard to a peace offering. It is written here with regard to first fruits, and the priest shall take the basket from your hand. Deuteronomy 26, verse 4. And it is written there, offering, he who offers his peace offering to God, his hand shall bring it, the fire of God, to raise it as a wave offering before God. Leviticus 7, 29 and 30. So just to continue the thought, we'll continue on to 61b now. Ma kan kohen af lahalan kohen, ma lahalan ba'alim af kan ba'alim. Okay, so kol meniach yado tachat yidei ba'alim. Just as here, in the case of the first fruits, it is the priest who takes the basket in his hand and waves it. So to here, in the case of the peace offering, a priest performs the waving, just as there with regard to a peace offering, it is the owner who performs the waving, as it is written, he who offers his hands shall bring. So to here, the owner waves the first fruits. How so? How can the waving be performed by both the priest and the owner? The priest places his hands beneath the hands of the owner and waves the first fruits together with the owner. Okay, that's how it's done, and we'll stop here, and that's that.